Welcome everybody to Saturday. For those of you who survived last night, congratulations. There was an odd bar fight situation that almost occurred. I'm glad that everybody survived that situation, and we're all here. We're all alive. Although I don't see Raji, so I don't know. We might be man down. Someone should get a hold of Raji. Anyhow, super cool opportunity here, guys. We got Brian Hamilton. He's a tight ends coach at Texas State, but to me, even more importantly, he was the high school coach at Concord High School, which happens to be in De La Salle, or happens to be the same town that De La Salle's in. And so the creativity you got to have to be competitive in a town with a school that has some national press and be successful is cool to me. So I still think that's the coolest deal. Me and another coach from West, we actually went down and visited Brian when he was there at the high school. It was just cool to see that. And so anyhow, I'm not going to keep talking. I'll let you go at it. And Coach, welcome to the Alaska Football Coaches Clinic.
Thank you very much for having me, Tim. I appreciate it. And just a little bit about me. I was a head high school coach for 15 years in California. And Coach mentioned it. We were at the public school 3 miles down the road from De La Salle. I took over a place that had won 4 games in 6 years. And my last 8 years, we averaged 10 wins a year, played for, 3 state titles, won one. And we did it by really taking a look at what we had and taking a look at our own inventory and not necessarily doing things the right way. But we did things the way that fit our kids and fit our community. The year that we won the state championship there in 2010, we had 26 guys on our roster in the second largest classification in the state. Our guys played both ways, and we did some unique things on special teams. And anybody that wants to talk about that stuff, man, we can talk about that at the end. Kind of what I wanted to go over here is I got a couple presentations. The first one is, what I'd kind of learned over the course of my time, my recent coaching history. I've been at the collegiate level now for 6 years. I was a assistant offensive line coach at University of California, Berkeley. I was the offensive line coach and assistant head coach at Murray State in Murray, Kentucky. And now I'm going into year 2 as a tight ends coach at Texas State. So, really I've kind of touched all levels, but I still really identify myself as a high school coach. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. All right, we'll go here. All right. And so, and this is, and it's odd that, we're at a clinic, and, I know that when I first started going to clinic, I was always looking for a scheme change that could help me out. But the best coaches on staff are the ones who come back to fundamentals before changing the scheme. I think a lot of times we look to change what we're doing rather than improve the fundamental skill at which we're executing it. And I think that becomes a dangerous spiral. We did it here at Texas State last year. We took a look at our run inventory, and there were something like 18 different run concepts that we installed at one point or another. And so when you're that busy chasing scheme, you spend a lot less time emphasizing great fundamental play. And so when I talk to my colleagues, we talk a lot about scheme, but the best coaches that I talk to me about fundamentals. Talk to me about the things that show up on every play. And what are your fundamentals, not what your techniques are. So your fundamentals can show up on any play. Great fundamentals, you can have a good play. Great technique with bad fundamentals, and you're fucked. You're screwed. I'm sorry, Tim. I'm gonna do my best, guys. I promise. I'm gonna do my best, but it gets away from me sometimes. So, but like as an offensive lineman, your fundamentals are gonna be, low butt, wide active feet, tight hands that lead first. I don't care whether you're in run or pass pro, your hands got to lead first, right? You've got to have a low ass, right? You got to have tight, fast feet. You got those 3 things, then no matter what happens, you got a chance at a successful play. But too often we don't see that And then as coaches, we get impatient. We say, okay, there's a scheme that we can install that will somehow compensate for that. And what I can tell you is after, now 22 years in the business is, guys, there's a reason that the triple option still works, because the fundamentals don't change, and that's what you coach. You know that the veer still works, and that's why the air raid still works, because it's a small set of fundamentals and it's attention to detail. So there may be some scheme things that I could, or another coach or another program could expose you to, but here's the problem, right? Does that scheme fit your inventory, right? I talk a lot about cooking with the groceries that are in the cupboard. As a high school coach, the best ones look at what they have and they build their meal around that. They build their offensive menu around that. The worst coaches that I've ever worked with say, this is what I want to run, and then they try to force it regardless of whether or not they have the personnel. So if you don't have a dynamic slot receiver and you're trying to run air raid quick game, then you're wasting everybody's time. You're just wasting everybody's time, because that's a key piece for that. If you don't have a quarterback that's a great decision maker and a great ball handler, then you shouldn't run the triple option, because you're wasting everybody's time. Okay. So part of you got to build around your inventory, right? You got to cook with your own ingredients, and you got to go to fundamentals before you go to a scheme change. All right. So that's lesson one. Many offensive system and plays have a similar offensive look. And what does that mean? It means, and it's funny because Coach Davis and I were just talking about this. Right now, there's so much information out there on the internet and so many YouTube videos that you can find something that kind of looks the same, right? But are the fundamentals there? Are the key pieces there, right? So you take a look at like when I would and I still go to clinics, but the one I remember most was, or an example of it was, I was listening to Coach Stoops. No, who was it? Anyways, they had Terrell Suggs as the defensive end at Arizona State, and he's showing clip after clip, and I'm like, well, I don't got fucking Terrell Suggs. I can't coach any of it. You know what I'm saying? Like, so there's a system and there's a look, but do you have the skill set in order to execute it? And then are there details involved to help you fix a problem? Guys, the thing about the air raid at this point is I can fix any problem that comes up with it because I've been running it for so long. It's one thing to have the information. It's another thing to have the fixes, right? You never have to get a real Rolex fixed. Real Rolex will last you 100 years, right? A fake Rolex is going to last you 15 months. And then you're going to have to fix it or repair it or replace it. So knowing and being familiar with the authentic and building it right and taking the time to manufacture it the right way always pays off. And what separates, when I've been speaking for Tony Franklin now for about a decade is the detail that which we work at. And there is no shortcut to getting it right. So whatever you're installing, whatever you're doing, if you're a head coach on this, and I'm sure right now I start talking about detail, and you start thinking about the coach that you have on staff that doesn't talk about detail, that talks about big concepts, or spends a lot of time telling the players, what he did. You can't get bored with the details, and there's no shortcut to being a detailed coach, and there's no shortcut to being a detailed player. It takes reps and it takes constant feedback in order to improve and to separate yourself with the detail in which you coach. Now, I say that. Let me say this. I've also talked to about 10,000 coaches that overcoach everything. And the older I get, I think this spring, I said it maybe 100 times, I got a great room. And I said, guys, it's been a long time since I've had my head in a helmet, and I just had my right toe stepped on, and I got a little bit of a headache. And if you're telling me that that's what it looks like to you through the face mask, then I'm going to go ahead and believe you. And I'm not going to overcoach it, and we're going to figure it out together. But that's something I'm going to tell a college junior. That's not something I would ever tell a high school junior. A high school junior, I'm going to say, this is the step and this is the way you take it. And because this will lead to success. It might not have led to success on that one play, but if we keep taking this step the right way, then good things are going to happen. And and the offense that I've worked in for years is not simple or easy, but it's user friendly. I've long called it the iPhone of offenses, because you can pick it up and you can use it right away. And there are great game, and there are many games won, which is great fundamentals, right? So whatever you're going to do, however you're going to build your offense, build it off the fundamentals, and you can win games off of those fundamentals, off of that scheme. Okay. That being said, once you master your basic concepts, then the possibilities are endless. So don't install fly motion sweep on your base outside zone play, right? Before you've mastered the outside zone play. Because what happens is we all fall in love with the window dressing. We all fall in love with the tags, the post tag, the corner tag. And the thing is, if you're really good at a base concept, if you're really good at throwing a curl flat, master it and then dress it up. Make somebody take it away before you start messing with it. Because fundamentals continue to win. This one is huge. Okay, time is a commodity, and how you choose to invest it will dictate your success. So I made reference earlier to, when I was at Concord High, and we eliminated special teams. How did we do that? For 6 years, we never kicked a PAT or field goal. Didn't even practice it, didn't have the ability. We averaged about 0.6 punts a game. We did it out of a max protect, max run look, and then we had a quarterback option to punt it. We didn't run a punt return. Curious side fact, the most penalized phase of the game in football is the punt return. So no matter how well you coach it, you're probably going to catch a 15-yard block in the back. So all we did is we slapped the ground and pretended like we played basketball. And when the punt was off, we ran off the field and there was a punt returner back there to fair catch it. As long as you were surrendering and giving us the ball, we were fine with it. But why do I say all that? Well, what I had found was we were investing so much time in special teams and we weren't seeing any return. Okay. And I'll tell you guys this, how are you guys investing time and not seeing any return? If you're practicing back shoulder fades and you haven't completed one in a game, you're wasting your fucking time. You know what I'm saying? There's something right now that you are dedicated to practicing over and over again, and it's not showing up on film. You're wasting that time, and that time you can spend to help you get better at something else. But that takes, and that's not to say like it's a new year and you're going into 2022 and there's a new quarterback and you're not going to work on a back shoulder throw. Like you got to give it a chance to grow. But if you keep chasing it and it doesn't show up on the scoreboard, then you're wasting your time. So that's why we eliminated the kicking game, because over the course of 3 years, we had attempted something like 11 field goals and we'd made 3. And if you're spending 20 minutes a week on field goals and you score 9 points over the course of 3 years, that's the biggest waste of time that you can possibly imagine. If it doesn't lead to points or lead to stops, then it doesn't have a lot of use. I mean, imagine had we spent that other 20 minutes a week on tackling, right? I mean, how much better might we have been at tackling? Imagine had we spent 5 more minutes on ball security, how many fewer fumbles we would have had. But your time is so limited, right? And especially at your guys' level, your time is limited. You've really got to think really hard. Am I investing my time and my kids' time in the right way? All right, so this, I want to, full disclosure, this very simple bar graph makes me look a lot smarter than I am. But what I did is, so my brother is a financial advisor and he was trying to talk to me about money at one Thanksgiving. And I immediately started thinking about football, right? So he was talking to me about how to invest my money, right? My core investment, my value added investments, and my opportunistic investments, right? So with my core investment, right, there's a very low risk, but there's only a medium potential for return, right? So for me, base plays out of versatile formations with no subs and tempo. So what does that mean? This means zone right. This means power right. You know what I'm saying? This is 4 verts. This is, your curl concept, right? So, but that's where as a wise investor, that demands return, this is where you're going to put the bulk of your time. This is where you're going to invest the bulk of your time. Then there are value added investments, right? And so the risk is somewhat greater, but the potential return is also somewhat greater. So this is motion to base plays and formations, tags to concepts, specialized personnel groups for base concepts. Okay, so specialized personnel for base concepts. One of my favorite things to do when I was at Concord High was put my best receiver in the backfield and motion him out against a linebacker and throw a base concept. I got paid a lot on that. Got paid a lot on it because it created the matchup that I was looking for the entire time. But that's value added because I can't turn around in tempo and put that kid in the backfield and run zone right, right? I can't go back to my core. And then it's opportunistic, right? So there's huge risk, right? But there's also big potential return. And what I found with a lot of guys that I coached against at the high school level is they almost inverted this, is that they took core fundamentals, our core concepts and fundamental play, and they devalued it as opposed to the opportunistic plays where they got really excited, right? When they started talking about their trick plays, right? The one time that this play looked really cool, and unique personnel packages. I've since interviewed, for numerous positions. And the funny thing is, everybody wants to talk about those plays, the play that worked that one time. And we all kind of talk about that as opposed to the time we ran zone right and averaged, 4.6 a carry over the course of a season. That's a good fucking play. And you did the right thing. So it's not as exciting, but your potential return for 6 points after 6 points for 6 points is right here. Okay. Anybody have any questions about that? Tim, if anybody have a question about that concept? I can't see everybody. Tim, do I got a question or no? We good? Am I good to move on? Just give me a thumbs up.
If anybody has one, like I said, guys, throw it in the chat or just in this room and just let me know and we'll ask it so we get it on tape.
Awesome. Yeah, that's probably better, right? Just ask them at the end and get it on tape. All right, that'll work. I'll just keep going then. All right, and so that all comes down to a base concept of hunt elephants, not field mice. And so as an offensive line coach, right, this means that when I go into a weekly game plan, even at the collegiate level, I'm worried about the 4 base blitzes that I see by formation. I'm not going to get carried away with the one time they ran a blitz on 3rd and 7 against a conference rival, because you can hunt that look. But you know what? The other guy on the other sideline is getting paid to do this too. And you can waste a lot of time hunting their most complicated look that you might have never see, right? So I spend my time hunting elephants. I'm a lion. I can subsist on an elephant for a long time. It takes me a lot of work to subsist on field mice. It's a lot of work and it's a lot of energy. So I'm big on hunting the elephant. It's something that I talk to about with my players. It's something that I talk to about with my assistant coaches and my student assistants and my GAs and all those guys is, look, those 3 blitzes over there that you're really worried about, make them fucking call them. Let's be so good on offense that they have to dig all the way to that blitz package to try to stop what we're doing. But let's not slow down or take away from our fundamental practice time or take away from running zone right and our package there to go hunt what we have to do when we see this certain look. Let's make them call it. And I talk about a back pocket game plan. So going into every game, right? I've got the game plan for the week, and then I've got my answers to the offensive coordinator when shit goes wrong. And how we're going to get back to running our base stuff. This is huge. There's probably a championship team on your campus. It just may not look like you want it to, right? So that's the Cinderella Man guy. You guys see that movie where he broke his hand and then learned how to punch with the other hand, and it didn't look like he wanted it to look, but he won a championship doing something different. So what does that mean? It doesn't just mean that it's a different kid. It may look like you have to go ask kids to play. It also may look like you've got to tell a kid that's on the team that's pretty talented, that doesn't show up, that disrespects other coaches, that's a locker room lawyer, that he's not welcome in the program. That's tough. I mean, believe me, I was on a team of 26 guys with 26 players, but they were the right 26, right? And so that's really popular now, right? Like, get the right people on the bus and a bunch of other cliches. But if you're truly building something and you're spending the time, you're gonna be successful. Now, like I said, I talk about my last 8 years as a coach. The first 3, I got my ass kicked between my shoulder blades every week. I was a 23, 24-year-old head coach trying to figure it out. And I was chasing scheme and I was chasing better players. And I came home one night and I complained to my wife, and the minute I say this, everybody's going to start nodding. I spent more time talking to players I didn't like than the players that I loved that showed up and did the right thing every day. I ignored the kids that did the great job every day. And I spent all my time disciplining and counseling kids that just could not get out of their own way. And so I told that to my wife, and she said, you know what, tomorrow go in and only talk to the kids that are doing the right thing. And it was a light bulb. And then it really changed. It changed my career and it changed my approach. And that's really when we started to see a lot more success. Because those kids deserve your time and your attention. And it's not to say that, there aren't troubled youth guys that need us. There are, but they've got to be willing to step towards you too now. It's a lot easier to push a car than to pull one. And so a kid that's willing to move, get behind that car and push him. But a kid that's got his heels dug in, you can waste a lot of time, energy, and attention trying to pull a kid to a place he doesn't want to go to. That's depressing. All right, so what's a great example of that, right? There's a championship team on your campus that may not look like you want it to look like. Well, I worked with Tony Franklin for years, and he had Jared Goff, and we threw the shit out of the ball. And the very next year, he goes to Middle Tennessee and has 2 quarterbacks injured, and they run Wildcat and score 77 points without a scholarship quarterback on the roster. That is not at all what Coach Franklin wanted it to look like, but he found a way to score points in a completely different fashion than what he was comfortable with, because it served the inventory of his team. All right. Lesson 5, again, there is no escape from selfishness. Once it grows, it destroys everything. Okay. And selfishness can show up in a lot of different ways. Now, look, right now, right, and I got a lot of gray. I don't see a whole lot of gray. Robbie Nash got a little bit of gray. Me and Robbie go have a beer together. All right. There it is. Oh, hell yeah, even better, a clean top. I love it. And we can talk about these fucking kids and the TikTok and their Twitter videos of them doing cone drills, right? And it appears like they're selfish. I'm gonna blow your minds right now. When me and Robbie were coming along, everybody talked about childhood actors, right? And all the problems with childhood actors. They had tons of problems because they grew up on screen. We are coaching an entire generation of childhood actors. From the minute these kids have been born, they've been documented by their parents. They've been on their parents' Facebook videos, eating, walking, talking, receiving likes, being liked by a tribe that's so big and so hard to like that they can't help it. That's not necessarily selfishness. You understand what I'm talking about? Selfishness is putting themselves above the team, but it's not just the players, guys. It's assistant coaches. It's assistant coaches that want credit for a scheme rather than being taking great pride in coaching fundamentals. You understand what I'm talking about? But out of all the places I've been, selfishness was the one over talent or anything else that caused us to lose games. So, one of the, a great book, if you haven't read it, is Tribe by Sebastian Junger. We all want to be a part of a tribe. But originally tribes were formed to help feed each other and to protect each other. The problem is that kids now think that their tribe include their Instagram followers and their TikTok followers, and it's impossible to feel connected to that part of your tribe. So the most special thing that we're doing, guys, and why I commend every one of you and why you're special is You're the only human beings on earth that can get a 15-year-old young man to put his cell phone down for 3 hours and dedicate himself to something else. They're not innately selfish. They're not innately attention seekers. They've been encouraged and molded to do it. And it's our job to help keep it, teaching them the pride in being a part of a tribe and knowing your place in the tribe and growing your place in the tribe. But it's your job to make them feel like they're part of a tribe and give them a job that they can be proud of. Now, that's not saying don't start a fucking kid that's going to lose you games, right? But it's saying that give him a role and something that he can take some pride in and know that he's contributing. Personal agendas on staff cripple everything from game planning to interplayer communications, right? I think that, you know, I'm on a staff right now, and it's I'm lucky enough to work with you know, I'm a lifetime offensive line coach, so it's what I've done. And our offensive line coach left, and we hired an offensive line coach from the NFL, and we worked together for about 2 weeks. And he looked at me, and we were having a beer, and he said, "Ham, you would never make it in the NFL." And I was kind of slighted by it, you know what I'm saying? And I didn't say anything that night. We got back together the next morning. I said, "Hey, what do you mean by that?" And he's like, "All you care about is winning. You're not cutthroat enough, you know, to coach at that level." And I was like, "Oh, that's a compliment. Now I see what you're talking about." I don't have any personal agenda, guys. I'm going to show up to help score points. And whatever it does to help score points, that's what I'm going to do, you know. And if you've got a personal agenda, everybody has an ego, but you've got to check your ego at the door in subservience to points and the tribe and the program. It doesn't matter whoever gets the credit. It just matters that the team is successful and the kids get something positive out of you and positive out of the program. Selfish players ruin drills, practice, plays, games, seasons, and eventually programs. I had a couple when I was at Concord High early in my career. And I learned that lesson. I've had some everywhere that I've been, and I've had great head coaches that took care of it. And I've had terrible head coaches that let it fester. And that's why I've had to call moving trucks. You know, it's just the way it is. But as soon as you allow a player to take that part of your practice over, you've just wasted everybody's time and everybody's day. All right, so that's the first thing that I got there. And then I'm going to share something with you that Tim asked that I go over. Because everybody on here knows Tim's a weirdo, so I'm not telling any secrets there. So this is called the spaghetti experiment. Like I said, I'm an offensive line coach by trade. And so this was after my second spring at Murray State. And it was a successful spring, but it still, I felt like there was a disconnect. And so what I did, and if you're going to do this, the first thing you got to do, guys, is you got to be willing to put sauce on the spaghetti. All right. I kind of went half-ass in with this one because I was always kind of walking on eggshells at Murray anyway. So I didn't want to ruin like the nicest room that we had there. And if I ever get invited to speak personally at the Alaska Coaches Clinic, before we start a bar fight, I'll tell you guys some fucking phenomenal stories about Murray State and why I was on eggshells. So we've got the spaghetti here, and right here at this end of the table, I have a phenomenally talented player that struggled to use technique. And the reason he struggled to use technique was because he could win a rep without it. And you've got that player on your team right now. You've got a running back on your team right now who's physically gifted that will not read the key of the inside leg of the guard because he can make a play sometimes happen without doing that. And that might not cost you today, but it will cost you in a big moment in a game, him doing his own thing, right? Next to him, I have a young guy who is not as physically talented in any way. And he can't win a rep by just being a big, strong kid. He's trying to use technique, but he applies the wrong technique at the wrong time. He can't identify footwork and landmarks. And so he plays slow and he's using the wrong tool. Next to him, I have kind of step 3 of a player, and I have a player that uses good technique with bad body position. And then at the end, I kind of have players that do it all. So we've got the spaghetti here, and we've got no utensil. We've got a spoon. Don't use a big metal spoon. Use a tiny plastic spoon. Again, mistakes that I made, right? And then I've got a fork, but the chair is 3 feet from the table, right? And then I've got a guy all set up. So the guys are kind of shuffling around, right? And everybody's kind of giggling about how this is going to work. And I'm coaching college football, so he's spitting out a dip, right? And I'm telling them all how they're going to have to eat this stuff. Now, this is the other thing. You've got to tell the kid with the spoon he's got to sit up straight, which is a change I make right about here. There it is right there. So now that job becomes more difficult. This guy can eat as fast as he wants. He's still going to get fed. This guy's going to struggle. This guy's going to struggle. It's going to be really easy for this guy. And I know everybody's hungry because you guys went out last night. I don't know who had a chance to get a greasy cheeseburger this morning, but I hope you did. Right. So now what I'm doing is I'm identifying what I'm talking about here in the experiment. Right. And how I'm identifying them as players. So right here, what I did is I said, please line up where you think you belong. And they were 100% accurate in self-evaluating themselves as players. They knew what their issues were, right? And this is about right. You probably have 2 guys on your team that are phenomenally talented that don't need to use technique until they're playing against a state championship level player. And then they're going to be sorry that they didn't use it all season, so it wasn't a tool that was ready for them. And then the biggest group, right? The 2 biggest groups were guys that used the wrong tools at the wrong time. These are all freshmen, right? These are your young guys that are trying but can't quite figure it out. And then the next largest group are guys that have bad body demeanor and bad body position, that are doing the right thing at the right time, but like aren't firing their hips when they're running off the ball, things like that. And then here, the other smallest groups are guys that kind of have it figured out. So how did this translate to fall camp, right? How does this end up? Okay, Coach Hamilton, that looks like fun. Looks like, your guys know what's wrong with them. How does it work? Well, now when I'm in fall camp a month later and I just scream at these 2, stop eating with your fucking hands, guess what? I'm coaching them in a different way and they get it. They understand what eating with their hands is. Telling this guy, pick up a fork. He understands it's a different way to communicate it, but it's a hands-on experience. Because here's the thing, right? Again, me and Coach Nash can tell you right now that when you mix baking soda with vinegar, it ends up looking like a volcano. I can't tell you anything else about a fucking volcano except that, because I did a hands-on experiment in 4th grade, and I learned that baking soda and vinegar ends up looking like a volcano. It's a hands-on experiment. These kids are self-identifying their own problems. I'm not constantly just telling them, you're in bad position. They figured it out. This guy's taking a rep. He's coming off the field. Just scoot up to the table. I'm not telling him, squeeze your lats, pull your head out, drop your ass. Just pull up to get your seat closer to the table. And these guys, I tell them, just keep eating. It became an even shorter way to communicate what the problem was during the rep. And it ended up being pretty powerful for us. And it's funny because, I tell kids, now that I have to recruit kids, I tell them that I recruit them for life. And I still talk to all those guys. And, they ended up winning a bunch of games this year. And they would text me like, I ate with a fork today, and shit like that. So that's pretty rewarding that it stuck with them like that. So I thought that was a pretty cool deal. I did that one. And then I did another one as you guys come up on summer, where I got 24 $20 bills, and I taught them about investing their time. And so I made them, and I just stole that. And I mean, I know it's not, I know I can't give Bill Cosby credit for a lot of things, but there was a Cosby Show episode where Theo wanted to move out and had no concept of money. My guys have no concept of time. They tell me how busy they are all the time. Well, they're not fucking busy if they're not playing PlayStation or Xbox for 5 hours a day or watching Netflix. So what I did is I told my guys, hey, for summer, let's budget your time. So I made them give me 8 of those $20 bills to sleep. And then I made them give me another $20 bill to shower and use the restroom. And I made them give me another $20 bill for eating and meal prep, right? So they're still looking down at $14, $20 bills, right? How much money is that? That's a bunch of money. Tim, what's the math on that? You're good with math. It's like 280 bucks, right? 280. So then I started saying, okay, now you got to pay for your phone time. How much phone time? If you got to pay 20 bucks an hour, how many hours are you going to be on the phone? I don't know, 1 or 2. Okay. You're going to get a job. Yeah, I'm going to get a job. Okay. That's good. All right. Give me 4 of those. Boom. And then what they realize is how much time they have, because all I was asking them for was 2 hours a day. 2 hours a day independent of scheduled workouts and other things to get better at their craft. But once you start telling kids, your time is an investable commodity and where you invest in it will pay off later, then they kind of realize, I can sit here for 3 hours on my phone, but I'm not any better for it at the end of those 3 hours. I can spend an hour on the phone and free up 2 hours to do something else. And so we saw big changes in our summer, and the guys came back in better shape. And I just wrapped up spring ball, and I did that exact same thing with the tight ends yesterday. And they kind of get it. So that was something, those are 2 things, like hands-on experiments that I've done with kids, hands-on experiences that I've done with kids that have really resonated with them and gone on to really improve who we are as a room. Because I think the number one thing is, when I talk to Tim, who's a classroom teacher, and I talk to him about the way that he uses interactive technology and all those type things, guys, we're competing like we've never had to compete before with kids' attention. And if you're just doing it the old way with a handout and writing on a board, there's no chance you're going to be successful, right? And it's not your fault. It's not that you're uninterested, right? I can look at boobs on my phone all I want. Guys, you got to compete with that. You got to compete with all the things that these kids have access to at their fingertips. And that means you've got to change. If you don't have their attention, you've got to change a little bit, because they're not changing. They're not going back. So that's why I've gotten to more hands-on experiences. That's why, I don't draw on the whiteboard anymore. I take still shots, and we coach off still shots off the back view of our film. Kids today are terrible at taking one-dimensional objects and transitioning them into 3-dimensional thoughts. It's not their fault. They've had great teachers their entire life that don't do handouts anymore. You know what I'm saying? That are interacting with the class. The teachers, the people that are paid to teach them things, have gotten so much better at presenting information that it's forced me to get better at presenting information in order to keep their attention. So some changes that I've made, and anybody that has any other questions, or you just want to see what I'm talking about, here, I got one. So like if I was like, this is my template for the bear front. And so every time I install versus bear, I just come back to this, because this is a very clean picture of what a bear front looks like. So if I'm installing zone left, right, solo, A, or scoop, right? And then that's the one in my gap, rather than circles and squares. You know what I'm saying? The way that Coach Nash and I learned to do it. You young guys, you don't know this shit, but there used to be a plastic template that had circles of different sizes and X's of different sizes and squares of different sizes. And that's how you used to draw out your playbook, right? Before there was a computer to do it. And it's so funny that those things are still out there, because a kid wouldn't, what the fuck is an X? Oh, it's supposed to be a fucking defensive lineman, son. You know what I'm saying? So, but this also allows for conversations like, okay, I've got to scoop to 32. I've got to ID bear scoop 32, right? 32 is offset to the back. That means that they're in a man concept. It means as the running back comes across, this double team is going to speed up, because it's a picture that lets them see that stuff. So there's a bear ID front. Here's a 4-man front with 1 in the box, low safety, right? Where can pressure come from, right? here's an outlaw, double three techniques, right? What do you expect here when you see double three techniques? The center, if both A gaps are clean, probably going to see some type of cross plug action or full front rock. Nickel 2 outlaw with both mugged. And so that's kind of like, I just build a library of that stuff in the off season, and then I build my playbooks off of that. And it's been pretty effective. It's been pretty effective. And it doesn't take much time at all. You know, but again, I can't compete with what good teachers are doing in the classroom with X's and O's anymore. So, and it also leads to better discussions, and that's been really good for us. So, guys, that's what I had prepared to present today. And the hour Coach Davis was good enough to give me it. Anything you guys want to talk about, man, I'm in for. I'm at the house. I don't have any of my Texas State film. If you want to reach out to Tim and ask about a specific concept or something that we're doing that's cool, he'll give you my personal email. Just put Alaska Coach in the subject line, and I'll get you film on stuff. You know, try to help you with something scheme wise or position specific drill, and I'll get you what I can. But that's what I had prepared to present today. Any questions
out here, guys? For the guys online, you can unmute or you can type in the chat, wherever works for you, if you have anything. How's the weather, brother?
I know it's going to rain today. That's, you know, we got rained out of, it's like the last storm. So, but normally it's 82. I mean, it's Central Texas. It's the greatest weather in the world. Like, I'll probably work at a gas station after I get fired from here. I just want to stay. I'll be a hell of a gas station attendant.
Hey, well, I appreciate you, man. Thank you.
We got two. We got two in the chat. Oh, thank you. Hey, you guys are welcome, man. That's you know, I told Tim, you got, you know, he's obviously a personal friend, and you know, I would, there are not many times where a guy could say, hey, can you just come and speak on what you want? And, you know, anytime I can hang out with him, I appreciate it. And I appreciate all you guys. I appreciate you guys taking your Saturday, trying to get better. Hopefully you got something out of it. Again, just reach out to Tim for my personal email address if you have any questions, more scheme related, and I'll be more than happy to talk to you.
All right, gentlemen. Thank you very much, Coach. We will talk soon, and our next session will start at 11. Thank you, Coach. Peace out, my friend.
Later, bud.